There was tons of on and off track drama in Budapest, but how did it affect our F1 fantasy squads? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Backup Fantasy Sports. It is Monday, July 22nd. My name is Ewan, and on today's episode, we're going to get into the Hungarian Grand Prix review episode. It was wild. We thought for a second there that Lando might sneak a win. I don't think he was going to win driver of the day by the early poll results, but yeah, McLaren nearly fumbled it. How do you come away from a race where you bag a 1-2 and you still feel this bad? Yeah, it was very stressful as a Papaya fan on Sunday afternoon. I had no idea what they were going to do. Max was like charging. He was red wall, red mist kind of it all over the track as well. Lewis Hamilton got third. So Papaya won too, with Oscar Piastri getting his first win. But yeah, lots of implications in F1 fantasy, as a lot of us went with the Lando Russell build. And then there was a story that I totally missed in the lead up to the race where Lando said that his throttle felt weird. So a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but some people actually final fixed Piastri in for Lando. And that worked like a freaking charm for those guys. So if you did that, round of applause to you. Well done. Great kind of gamble there with the final fix. That is a fantastic way to use that chip. But let's get into the regular review episode here. Hungarian Grand Prix facts and stats. Optimal team at the end of the day based on a $124 million budget, thanks to F1 Fantasy Tools. McLaren, Mercedes, Piastri with the 2 times. Russell, Magnussen, Ocon, and Albon. Positions gained were Russell and Perez at 9. They had a fantastic Sunday. The undercut was very strong in Hungary. That's kind of what got McLaren into trouble there. Hamilton and Leclerc with 2 positions gained, Piastri, Ocon, and Tsunoda with 1. So Russell and Perez really the standouts there. Overtakes Magnussen and Stroll with 7. Magnussen just continues to get it done on Sundays. Really have overlooked him in this lead up to the summer break. These last 5 races, I've really overlooked Kevin Magnussen, so I may need to make that change heading into Spa. And then Ocon and Albon with 6 overtakes, Perez and Bottas with 5. And then the fastest pit stops here, VCarb, 10 points, and Alpine with 8 points. So great job by them. I think I saw that VCarb's fastest stop yesterday was the 10th fastest stop of the season. So round of applause to Red Bull Juniors there, because that was a fantastic pit stop and they got them 10 points. Anyways, on to the optimal teams here. So like I was saying, there are a lot of kind of options for our lineup going into the Saturday lineup lock where I was live. So hopefully you joined in there. Really appreciate everyone joining. Yeah, super fun to just talk F1 fantasy before the deadline. So Piastri, Russell, and 3 C tier drivers here. We already talked about this. This was the optimal team. It cost 121.9 million. So I'm not entirely sure how many people would actually have had this team, because having 2.1 million in the bank with Albon there, that could have gotten you up to another like Hulkenberg or even like a Yuki or a Danny Rick. So let me know in the comments below if you did go with that lineup. If you got 270 points, great job by you. Norris, Russell, and 3 C tier drivers. This was my lineup here, or the kind of version of the formation that I went with. So Norris with the 2 times, Russell, Magnussen, Ocon, and Sargent. I did not have Magnussen. I did not have Ocon. I had Sargent, I had Joe Guan Yu, and I had Nico Hulkenberg. So I did not get as many points as I would like. That was 230 points. If you went with Red Bull as the constructor and you had at least 120 million or up to 120 million, you could have gone McLaren, Red Bull, Piastri with the 2 times, Russell, Albon, Bottas, and Sargent. That would have gotten you 242 points. And then Red Bull and $118 million budget, McLaren, Red Bull, Piastri, Magnussen, Ocon, Albon, and Tsunoda for 231 points. I would have loved any of those totals. So let me know in the comments below if you were able to kind of get any of those lineups together, and if you maxed out your budget, if you did some of the better kind of angling here with your team in Budapest. Driver of the day, And the Oscar goes to Oscar Piastri, first Grand Prix win of his career, first Driver of the Day award since Qatar 2023, where he won the sprint race. So he's won 2 F1 races now, but this was his first Grand Prix win. And it was the most career F1 fantasy points scored in a non-sprint weekend for Piastri. I think he scored 56 points last season in Qatar. But just in one weekend, just a fantastic effort by the sophomore driver here from Australia. 46 points, qualified second, finished first, positions gained 1, overtakes 1. The overtake, I guess, did they not count the second overtake? I guess not, when he overtook Lando there, because he also had the turn 1 overtake. But that is what they said on F1Fantasy.com. So interesting there. But yeah, great job by Piastri. I was kind of touting him on green flag, yellow flag, red flag last weekend before the Hungarian Grand Prix. I didn't really expect these kind of results, but yeah, great job by him. He is going to win a ton more races, and Papaya fans like myself should be very happy with the future of the team as long as Lando and the kind of upper management can put this kind of awkward Sunday behind them. Moving over to my team review. People have said that I don't actually talk about my team on the Hungarian Grand Prix or any of the Grand Prix reviews, so I will just touch on it here. 216 points, went up about 500 places in the overall ranks. I'm now at 7,200 overall. It gained 0.3 in budget. My 2 transfers were Stroll to Sargent and Gasly to Russell. I was really down on Stroll. He did okay, but overall I gained 38 points according to F1FantasyTools.com. So not too sad there, as I would have been sub 200, and that would have been a pretty big bummer, especially with Lando doing all right, George doing all right. So yeah, happy with that. Just slowly but surely climbing up the rank after a pretty shocking 5 race run there for my own team. As I was looking at my previous videos, because I was trying to figure out when the last time I had a green arrow was. And I think before like Canada or Imola, I was in the top 2000. So I've really struggled recently. Haven't been really jumping on the budget assets, but we can fix that heading into Spa. Comeback kids here. Perez and Russell had very, very tough Saturdays. Perez crashing out in Q1 again. Russell kind of getting the strategy wrong with Mercedes. They didn't put enough fuel in his car. Kind of went out too early. He said that it was partly his fault because he took his first run in Q1 not as seriously as he should have, which is an interesting tactic. So he qualified 17th, kind of got caught out there. They both finished. Perez finished 7th. Russell finished 8th. F1 fantasy points. Perez with 20, like kind of straight up points. And Russell, 27. He had the fastest lap, so that still counts, but 17 without the bonuses. And then the budget gain, they both went up 0.3. I don't think this means a ton for Perez. I don't think this increases his F1 fantasy prospects for me going forward. But for Russell, I think he's going to be a firm hold for me. He'll probably get a yellow flag on green flag, yellow flag, red flag this week if I decide to put him in there, which will be out on Wednesday. And you will not miss that episode if you like and subscribe to the podcast. We just went over 500 subscribers, so greatly appreciate that. Any support is always welcome. So yeah, Russell definitely a hold or a buy heading into Spa, as I think the temperatures should be a little bit cooler up in Belgium compared to what we experienced in Budapest this weekend. So hopefully the Mercedes will be flying a little bit again. But yeah, comeback kids, just a good job by Perez and Russell, and both the teams kind of getting those guys in the undercut. I think they both went long on their first stint. They started on the hard. And yeah, it worked out for them. So lots of lots of positions gained for both of them. And Russell coming in with the fastest lap was very handy for budget gains and F1 fantasy managers. Moving over here to the 2-horse race. I think I'm just going to make this kind of like a permanent slide in my episodes going forward. But is the Constructor starting to become a 2-horse race? So last week I updated it with the last 5 races. We're now 13 races into a 24 race season, 1 race to go before the summer break. And McLaren and Mercedes are just pulling away right now from Red Bull and Ferrari. So over the first 7 races of the season, Red Bull was averaging 84.4 points, McLaren 47.4, Ferrari 69.4, and Mercedes 35. So when we were building our lineups early in the season. I think after 2 or 3 races, we eventually all hopped on Red Bull and Ferrari, but it's really been changing since then. I don't think it's controversial to say anymore that McLaren has the fastest car in F1. They seem to suit almost every track. Mercedes, probably not faster than Red Bull, but on specific tracks, they can get the better of them, like we saw at Silverstone, where Lewis Hamilton got the W. And that might come into play in Spa as well, because over the last 6 races, Red Bull is averaging 44.8 points per race, McLaren 61.2, Ferrari 41.2, and Mercedes 59.7. So when you can just, what is that, 122-ish points a race for way less price than going with Red Bull and McLaren or Red Bull and Ferrari, it seems like McLaren and Mercedes are just kind of pulling away here in the constructor standings when it comes to F1 fantasy, at least. So if you are not on those guys, I would highly suggest making a plan for Spa. We do think that Max Verstappen is supposed to take an engine penalty, and I talked about this on the live stream. I think I touched on it a little bit in team selection last week as well, but I was kind of the mind that Max Verstappen on an engine penalty is pretty much like gold dust in F1 fantasy, but I don't think I'm there anymore. I think this Red Bull car seems to be struggling a little bit for pace. I think these other teams are catching up. I don't think Ferrari is going to compete this weekend. I wouldn't expect them to kind of show a little bit of surprising pace that we saw in Hungary this weekend, because Spa will have some high-speed corners where Ferrari is struggling a lot with their most recent update. I think they've abandoned it. I'm not sure if they're going to bring any updates here, but for Red Bull to finish 5th, they had a couple of snafus here, obviously getting undercut, and then Max kind of crashing into Lewis. But yeah, Red Bull's update didn't seem to kind of do what it wanted. They're talking about doing race-specific like setups or kind of what do you call it, shells of the car, I guess, like high downforce track. Sergio is running an old spec this weekend, had a pretty good race, but I feel more comfortable rostering McLaren and Mercedes moving forward. So yeah, I think the constructor may be turning into a 2-horse race now, especially given the price difference. Like Mercedes is cheaper than Ferrari still. I'm not sure for how much longer that's going to be, but you can get McLaren and Mercedes in your lineup for a lot cheaper than any asset with Red Bull. So I think that's where I will be going in Belgium as of Monday, July 22nd. So when F1 Fantasy finally updates every Sunday, Monday, sometimes Tuesday, remember that one time earlier in the season, the first thing I do is check my points. Second thing I do is check where I am in the global ranking, my mini leagues. And then the third thing I do is check my budget, because that is important in the game. And that did not happen very well in Hungary. Not a lot of budget gains in Budapest at all. In fact, it was the 3rd fewest budget gains of the season for both driver and constructors. So on the table here, I've got the 5 fewest budget rises in the game so far this season. So Spain was the fewest with 1.1 total gains for drivers and 0.4 total gains for constructors. Imola was 2.2 for drivers and 1.1 for constructors. Then Hungary came in with 2.4 yesterday for all the drivers and 0.8 for the constructors. Bahrain, first race of the season, 2.7 million, and then 0.6 for constructors. And then Japan, 3.6 million and 1 million for constructors. So yeah, yesterday, not a lot of budget gains. I think only Magnussen and Ocon were the 2 C-tier drivers that actually went up in price. All the other C-tier drivers went down. Hulkenberg, Ricardo, Sonoda, even though like they all kind of had okay races, Logan scored positive points, still didn't get enough. So there weren't enough DNFs in the field. Only Gasly went out. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if Verstappen had to DNF with that late crash in with him and Lewis. I'm not entirely sure if that would have been like he would have just dropped down and would have still been classified, because it's pretty late in the race. So I'd have to go back and look at that. But yeah, not enough DNFs in the field to get those points that we needed to get negative points into the total to kind of boost up the C-tier drivers. So that was a little bit tougher. So this might be something we need to think about with our C-tier assets, especially if we are on like a like a 1A driver and then 4 C tier drivers, like that could be something that we need to avoid and kind of hope to get in our B tier drivers. Cause I mean, Piastri went up 1 million this week. If you had him, not only did you get the points, you also got a huge budget gain that not a lot of people in the rest of the field got. So yeah, like the meme says here, F1 fantasy managers after Hungary, where budget gains. Yeah, hopefully that spa will bring us a little bit more in that regard. Speaking of budgets, price change explanation here. So the average score was drivers was 11.1, constructors 28.5. So on the screen here, you have to score at least 6 to get the minimum price in the driver rankings, 16 for the medium price, and 31 for the that's not right. That's 33 actually. Sorry. There in the Hungarian Grand Prix. And then on the constructor side, it's 28.5 average score. So minimum price was 15, medium price was 44, and maximum price gain was 87. No one reached that heights, but Mercedes and Ferrari both reached the medium price gains there. Driver price changes: Verstappen 0.1, Norris 0.1, Leclerc, Hamilton, Perez, Sainz, Russell all went up 0.3. Piastri went up 1 million. So he is now tied for the third highest output there with Leclerc at 23.3. Alonso went down 0.3 after kind of a disastrous weekend for him. And then Stroll went up 0.1. Down here in the lower price bracket, Magnussen and Ocon went up 0.5. And then, like I was saying, all the C tier drivers went down here. So Ricardo, Sonoda, Albon, Bottas, and Sargent all went down 0.1, whereas Gasly, Hulkenberg, and Zhou Guanyu went down 0.2. Over on the constructor side, Red Bull plateaued yet again, 0.0 price change, so they remain at 29 million. McLaren went up 0.1, 25.9. Ferrari went up 0.3, Mercedes 0.3. RB went up the most, 0.5 here. Aston Martin, 0.1. And then Haas, Alpine, Sauber, and Williams all fell. Alpine falling 0.2. Price change headlines here. So the low budget gains in Budapest, third fewest gains in 2024 that I just talked about in the previous slide. Piastri jumps into tie with Leclerc for the third most expensive asset or driver in the game at 23.3. Kevin Magnussen rose 0.5 for the 9th time this season. He has risen the most on the grid, biggest riser on the grid, 5.1 million this season, which is phenomenal for the Haas driver, despite him losing his ride over the weekend. So we'll see if he can kind of get onto another team or if this is kind of it for Kevin Magnussen F1. It would be a shame, as he is one of the most entertaining wheel-to-wheel drivers on the grid. And then Red Bull earns no price rise for the 4th time in the last 6 races. So they are underperforming for their price, and they're not even getting price gains anymore. So, yeah, Red Bull's going to have to show some big form in Belgium if they want to get in most of our F1 fantasy lineups. F1 Fantasy Pole Position League updates here. Season top 5, Hungary top 5. Leapers 1 leads at 3,277. Ricardo 3,172. Or Ricardot, 3172, Master of Signs 3152, Downforce F1 3116, and Yukigo Karts 3093. All of these managers are in the top 200 in the world, so great job by them. Leapers 1 is second, so shout out to, I believe it's Andrew. Let me know in the comments below if you are watching, so great job by you. And then Ricardot is in the top 40, I think just slipped into a tie to 40th in the world after this weekend. Over on the top 5 side for Hungary, check out Clerks 307, Largewood Racing 288, Zaddy Hammy 288, Damien 7XYZZ 281, and then hashtag Team LH Love Charles 279. All of those managers used a chip this weekend. I think Checkout Clerks used extra DRS with Piastri and Sainz. So great job there. And then everyone else used their Limitless. So Limitless kind of fell by the wayside here because Ferrari was a little bit surprising. McLaren and Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes. I don't think anyone would have had Ferrari in their Limitless chip. So that was a little bit of a bummer when it came to using that chip this weekend. But, you know, sometimes the chips fall where they may. And I mean, you took your shot. So don't feel too bit down. There's still 11 races to go in the F1 Fantasy 2024 season. Over here, upcoming races, Belgium this weekend. Then we got a long summer break, and then the Netherlands in August 23rd to the 25th. So it's going to be a long break for the summer. There will be content on F1 Fantasy pole position, so definitely like and subscribe to the channel. Stick around for all that. Upcoming episodes, there's actually be 4 episodes this week, including this one. I'm going to split things up a little bit. So tomorrow will be early team selection, green flag, yellow flag, red flag will come out on Wednesday. And then Thursday will be the race preview and team and like kind of final team selection. That will be Thursday. So that'll be a bigger episode. Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of more small, bite-sized episodes for you guys to check out. Let me know if you like that kind of format a little bit more, because I can split up the review episode into like a pure race review and then early team selection, and I can start doing that moving forward. So once again, thanks for all the support. Over 500 subscribers for the channel. Greatly appreciate all the likes, subscribes, the comments. Like, it's really fun to talk F1 Fantasy with a bunch of y'all. Hopefully I'm giving out somewhat okay advice. The Oscar Piastri call, I was a little bit chuffed about yesterday, although I did not follow my own advice. But yes, 4 episodes this week, like I was just saying. Let me know in the comments below if you like the kind of format there. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Good luck tinkering. Quick turnaround for the back half of this doubleheader, and I will talk to you next time.